Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much to our witnesses. Certainly, when I travel around my district, I do hear from constituents who are frustrated about the ongoing crisis and the ongoing challenges we face at our southern border. And my constituents are right to expect a secure border, and they're right to expect a lawful immigration system that works. And protecting our borders is a matter of sovereignty, and immigrants should come to our country through a lawful and through orderly channels. So I do support hiring more Customs and Border Protection officers and some common sense improvements to our adjudication of claims to handle the administrative backlog that exists in our immigration system. But as a former intelligence officer, I also understand that we have to look at the root causes to why we would see influxes of individuals coming to the United States. And certainly, as a former intel officer, you don't wait until the problem arises to understand some of the challenges that cause it. So my question relates to, how we are working with partners and allies around the world to try and prevent the conditions that cause migration, instability, violence, threats of the rule of law, and a lack of economic opportunity that really create challenges, including for those who may be fleeing failed socialist governments. So my question first, looking at these root causes, would be how are your agencies applying some of the lessons that have been learned from successful investment projects throughout Northern Triangle countries to other Western Hemisphere countries to try and focus on some of the prioritization of kind of stability and support to the people on the ground there to get at some of the root causes that might cause individuals to want to leave?
Congresswoman, I think that's a great question. I will speak on the issue of security or insecurity. I think you're absolutely right. The conditions on the ground in Central America are such that people don't feel secure,
Yeah.
either physically or in terms of food. They don't feel secure. They don't feel like they have access to employment and or education, and many of them don't feel like they have adequate access to health care. I would say, for speaking for INL, we are very closely involved in making sure that we're working with security services, judicial systems, correction systems to affect that kind of change, to give them more security and to give them the opportunity and safety to want to stay in their own country. But it's not easy. And overlying all of that is the issue of corruption. Corruption is killing people. And if we don't get a handle on that, whether it's government corruption or corruption in the private sector, if we don't get a handle on that, we're not going to change the conditions on the ground.
Thank you for that answer. Certainly, I was pleased to see that the administration requested and the House passed an appropriations bill with substantial increases to funding to address some of these root causes, particularly through Central America. But pivoting and related to corruption, sadly, is the issue of narco trafficking. And certainly from 2020 to 2021, the total pounds of fentanyl seized by CBP has nearly tripled. And we see in communities across Virginia and across the country, individuals who are dying of overdose because drugs have been laced by fentanyl. So this is an issue that matters to the people I represent. So Mr. Robinson, I think I'll direct this to you. Could you discuss how your department is focusing on tracking the flow of fentanyl into the U.S., identifying trafficking organizations, and working with other countries, and anything else that you think members of Congress should know on this issue?
Absolutely. I will say, number one, we continue to engage, although it doesn't appear to be the case, we continue to engage with China on scheduling precursors, different levels, different types of precursors that are coming essentially from China, largely flowing to Mexico. We also engage very closely with Mexico on this issue. In my first week, I was on a plane with the secretary to Mexico to oversee the signing, the approval of the bicentennial framework, where we have agreed with the government of Mexico to work much more closely on tracking fentanyl, tracking the networks that are producing and distributing fentanyl. And then the United States has also, through this framework, taken it upon itself to look at demand reduction and looking at the societal issues in the United States that are causing demand for this drug. So all of those things are being looked at by the Biden-Harris administration.
Excellent. Mr. Assistant Secretary, thank you so much for your time. Mr. Chairman, thank you for letting me go over. I'll be following up with some questions for the record, but I really appreciate your work, Mr. Robinson, and those of everyone who works with you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you very much.